Right. Why don't we get going? I know people will be trickling in. So I'll start just with a couple of slides here to get things going. I'm really psyched about this. Welcome, everyone. I'm Hans Estrin, University of Vermont Extension, Career Safety Specialist, and this is our scrub team, sanitizing, cleaning resources for your business. And we've been going, it's a three-year grant here, and Vern, Chris Callahan, Andy Chamberlain from Extension, Billy Mitchell, our produce safety enthusiast from Georgia, and we got our Cornell Cooperative Extension. Lori's here as well, and Phil Toko from Michigan State. So we got people from all around, and we're launching the 6-part series, which I'm really excited about. It's not it's very informal, no presentations, but really just seating and holding space for some good discussion around some hot topics. And this, of course, crew management is a very hot topic, and this focus in particular is really looking at management style and authentic management style, and how to cultivate that for recruiting, retaining lean and clean farm crew. And what is lean? What do you mean by lean? Someone asked me that, so I'm not going to spend any time on this, but basically, probably many of you have seen the Lean Farm guide, which comes out of Japanese industrial work stuff adopted to farming, and really thinking about smooth production flow, waste elimination. And so a lean crew really can increase efficiency, flow, food safety, if turnover's less, if people are into it. So that's where that name came from. All right, I want to jump into this as soon as possible. We're just going to do a little intro logistics, and then sharing discussion is going to be the lion's share. I don't know why this is all one. Well, that's our second one. 1, 2, 3, imagine. Just our sharing and discussion is the majority of everything. In the last 10 minutes, we'll take just to follow up on and do a little eval. So I'm looking for a timekeeper to hit me over the head when it's 5:20 if I don't get to it. And I don't know. Lori, are you up to that task?
I would love to be the timekeeper.
Oh, beautiful. I love it. Okay. And many of you who've done these meetings are hip to some of these basic rules here. Mute yourself, less speaking. And the raise hand function is cool. Maybe give that a try and make sure you can see it. And the chat box is in the upper left. And I would definitely click that open, because we'll be posting things in that and sharing some stuff. Feel free to use it to share comments and questions. Okay, and this one particular question, you can open the chat box right now, and I'll have a look, or in just a minute, I'll jump out to be able to do that. But if you could put A, B, or C in the chat box, at this point, we may have a pretty big crew, and what I need to do as facilitator is probably we'll sort of self-select into 2 major groups here, and they're first people who have, are coming with some specific management issue that's bugging them, or it's a good thing, or some success that they sort of ran into, or conundrum of some kind that you'd be happy to share. So put A in the box if that's the case, and we'll definitely give you the spotlight for a little bit to share that, and we can have discussion around that. If you're here really because you mostly just want to listen or maybe ask a question, put B, and C if you're not entirely sure. And let's see what we get. Actually, I don't know if I can do that. Yeah, I can get out of there for a minute. Got some B's here. We do have a few more A's coming, and maybe the B's can become A's as well, and we'll have plenty of discussion, I'm sure, regardless. Many of you have crews, and just sharing your situation would be good. Lisa McDougall is coming, and she definitely had some stuff to share. Henry's here. All right. And hi. And Eli and Valerie from Honeyfield were also coming to share some stuff. So we'll wait on, I'm sure they'll show up at some point. Keeping your video on is great. And if not, you know, it's up to you if you need to scooch out for a second or whatnot. Okay, that looks good. And Henry, and if you probably popped in just before this, but if you have any issue or some kind of crew management thing, you issue, success, conundrum you want to share, put that A, B, or C in the box, so you can see that there. All right, so we're gonna, in just a second, let's just go around and say where you're coming from, and particularly your crew size, like you have a farm crew or you're thinking of it, and the relative weight on your mind. Like it's a big deal for you, it's something that is weighing down, or it's something you're looking forward to, that would be a higher number. And one is like, yeah, it's of interest, but not totally occupying me. So we'll get to that in 1 second, and yep, we're going to get to that right now. Get out of here. So I'm going to turn it over, and Joey, why don't you start, because you came in first and you're on the top left. And please start up your video camera when you're introducing yourself, at least. So, and Joey, this is just name and sort of wait. We're just going around quick, and then you'll jump in again in a minute.
Yeah, sure. When you said you can see me, right? My video should be going.
Yep,
Okay,
we can
great.
see you. You're good.
I'm Joey LaHoulier, Tony, and I own the Footbrook Farm in Johnson, Vermont. We grow about 40 acres of vegetables and some fruit organically, and we employ probably about 15 people every summer.
Great. How about Micah?
Hey, I'm Micah. I'm from Diggers Mirth Collective Farm in Burlington, and there is probably between 10 and 12 of us, depending on the time of season, and so that'd be between 5 and 7 crew.
All right, and crew issues big on your mind, or small, like 1 to 5, scale 1 to 5?
I would put, I don't know, like a 2.5.
Yeah, sort of middle of the road. And Joey, I don't know if you said that, I might have been spacing out.
2.5 is a great. I like that. I feel about the
Okay.
same.
Middle of the road. Sounds good. Ryan and who else is there? We got the fuzzy screen.
Yeah, this is the first time we've ever used Teams. We're trying to figure it out. So we got a fuzzy background. We don't know how to get out of it. So we're living in the fuzz forever, I guess.
Yeah.
So I have a very small crew, very, very part-time crew. And they're not here now. They're very seasonal. And I'm just sick of working so hard and working so much. And it's not a natural skill, I don't think, to me. So I'm just here kind of to listen and learn. And yeah.
Yeah. And I'm Jenica. I have an additional business. I work totally on my own at the farm. But I have a landscaping business, so I grow plants for my customers and I grow edible flowers. But I can manage my scale by myself here. But my business also, I've hired my first employee, but looking towards the future, it's kind of nerve-wracking figuring out how many people will be the right number. So maybe a 4.
And yeah, and that's an interesting thing too, when you've got a potential partnership and can trade off some things in terms of management, or not. You know, brings up another dynamic, obviously. Awesome. And you guys, did you say where your farm is? I can't remember. Maybe not.
Well, Hyde Park. We're in Hyde Park, Vermont.
Great. All right, Ellen.
Well, hi everyone. I work for the Midwestern version of NECAF. So if you're familiar with that organization, I do the same thing in the Midwest. And this is a topic we hear people talking about all the time here. So I am hoping that you all will have some good ideas that I can take back to our region. So thanks for letting me join you.
Thanks for joining us. Colin, you up and running there?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name's Colin Thompson. I manage the research farm at Johnny's Selected Seeds up in Albion, Maine. We're a bigger company, but my department, which is the farm operations department, I've got about 30 people on my team. And so crew is certainly a big part of what we think about on a year-to-year basis. So I don't know where to put it on the scale, but I do a lot more crew management than I may have at other farms I managed.
Nice. And Colin, would you say precision, given a research farm, is a higher priority or about the same?
I would say it's a big consideration because the stakes are pretty high, as you can imagine, especially when working with breeding crops that are years in the making. And so a simple mishap of, say, cultivating the wrong field or terminating a field early can have pretty big impacts. So communication is pretty key in what we're doing.
Yeah. All right, moving to LF, Lowdown Farm. I don't know if you've got a video you can turn on or just introduce yourself.
Yeah, hey, my name's Ian. I'm from Lowdown Farm. We're in Montana, and a food safety consultant that I'm working with turned me on to this series, and so that's why I'm here. We're about 10 acres. We employ 3 to 5 people, with a couple year round, and then bulk up our crew during the summer. And I think our crew is really important to our operation. Being as small as we are, we kind of need everybody really pulling their weight. So I guess I'd put it at a 4 or a 5 as far as importance for me.
Great, thanks, Ian. Lori, we got you coming up next, and I did already say your name, but why don't you just go ahead and say where you're coming from? And
Hi, folks. I'm Lori. I live in Rochester, New York. I'm a technician for the Cornell Vegetable Program, and I'm a part of the scrub team. And I work with a lot of farmers in Rochester and Buffalo, and always hear I'm interested in this topic because I know it's important to a lot of folks that I work with, and so excited to be a part of the conversation and hear what we talk about.
thanks, Lori. Forrest. I have that FB, Forrest. I don't see your video, but if you are there, go ahead.
I'm Forrest from Seacoast, New Hampshire, and we hire around 20 people seasonally. Most of them work in our farm stand, and a smaller percentage work in the fields.
What farm?
Barker's Farm.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And where on the Seacoast?
Stratham, New Hampshire.
Okay, excellent. And how big is the crew is it relatively speaking, on as far as sort of a weight of concern or issue for the farm?
I'd say I like the 2.5 or a 3. I think we always have a great crew, but I always want to be better and more effective, and make sure everyone's happy and feels like they know what they're doing and have agency. So yeah.
Hi, Valerie, you just arrived. Thank you so much for coming. We're just doing quick introductions, your farm name, whatever, where you're coming from, size of your crew, both in terms of numbers and sort of how much it weighs on your whole operation, and in terms of bandwidth, I should say, 1 to 5 scale.
Great, thank you so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Valerie Woodhouse. My partner Eli Hirsch and I have Honeyfield Farm in Norwich, Vermont. We have a crew of about 12 to 15 full and part-time folks from March through October. Our season, we have about 3 seasons within our season. So we have one crew that's our early greenhouse production crew. Then we have a retail crew that's another portion of the season. And then we have a long-term veggie field crew that's April through November. I would say that in terms of just sort of like how much time and money and energy that goes behind even just the planning for every day, I would say we're still at like maybe a 4 out of 5 of how much energy it takes and capacity of the farm. Did I miss any questions?
No, we'll jump back in. We'll come back to you relatively soon to sort of jump into a, some specific thing you maybe can share from last year or whatever that we talked about would be great. And welcome Eli too. I don't know if you want to say anything. You'll have a chance to talk in a little bit. All right, we're getting there. Let's see, Henry, I don't think we heard from you yet.
Hey everybody, Henry Webb from Old Road Farm. Gabby's over here too. We generally hire like 3 or 4 people, some full-time. We'd like to be doing more full-time, less piecing together a lot of different people over the course of the season. We're in Granville, Vermont, which is kind of a funny labor market because there's no one who lives here. And I'd say it's like a 3. Yeah.
Right. Wherever you find your employees, who knows? Somewhere. Did I miss anyone? Andy.
Good afternoon, Andy Chamberlain with UVM Extension. Many of you know me. I know many of you, so welcome. I know some of you are back from the last year's Scrub webinars as well, so welcome back. I'm part of the Scrub project, and so I'm here kind of to listen and learn, and also I anticipate our family farm will have the need for hiring in the not too distant future as well. So I'm also looking to glean some from those with more experience than I.
Thanks, Andy. All right. So I would say this is the perfect number of people to have on this call. And ideally, if we're super successful, this will just run itself. There's a lot to talk about here. And I come from a teaching background and always was really interested in, I hated canned curriculum, like when they have that, you get those textbooks and it like tells you all the activities, and I couldn't stand them. And I realize now that it really was about authenticity, and that there really is not a one size fits all. So this is sort of, I know that this is a really big deal. The whole, finding good crews, crew turnovers. There's a lot of templates and resources out there, and I'll put in the chat a growing list actually right now that I have up in just a second. So in a way, it's not so much about these strategies, tools, and tricks that are out there, and of course you've got to learn about them. But there's what I noticed in teaching is that basically students could totally, I had high school and college students, but totally see through authenticity. Like if you're trying to fake something and do some sort of system, but your heart's not in it, it really would backfire. And I knew that, I noticed this my whole life. And I also have heard this from other, people who manage crews as well, that if you got to be sort of in it, you got to find some authentic style, some sort of something that really moves you, is joyful for you, or kind of pays attention to what you react to, and et cetera, and really informs what sort of menu of strategies and tools, tricks you actually can employ. And of course, all this is going to take work. So that's kind of the premise of this, the focus of this. And I'm sure we'll talk about all sorts of tools and tricks. You guys are going to basically run with this some. But I do want to try to steer the conversation to these, whatever specific moments that happened, things that were successful or were problematic, what you learned from them, what you learned about yourself. So it's like the outside stuff, but what do you learn about your own style, and how to sort of change your approach in a way that feels more like you, and what that means. And maybe we can all learn from that. So when you leave here, hopefully you leave with something that you want to try. You've learned something from someone else. You're like, maybe I'll try that, see how it, or maybe I've learned something about myself in this, or whatever. So that's where we're going. And I did want to just mention that this Scrub project, you might say, well, the crew management, we're really looking at, we're getting funded by produce safety money from the FDA the USDA. And it's not, it may seem a little disconnected, but it really is not. I mean, we're doing this 3-year project. We're developing resources, deploying workshops, and the workshops have become more and more one-on-one or small group things, where we try to meet growers where they are and support them to do what they want to do, to run a good farm, to feel more sane, to get more joy out of it, to feel like it's sustainable, and all of that. Produce safety or risk management fits into that. So when we're supporting a fair number of growers of small, either by giving them resources or working one-on-one. Okay, I think that is going to be it. So without further ado, let's just jump in, and this is pretty free-form. Again, no presentations, but the more detail you can share with, and like these moments, like points of pain, like whatever, just like something specific that is either bothering you or came up or you experienced. And I did pick on a couple of people beforehand, and one is not here yet, Lisa McDougall, but yeah, I think Joey from Footbrook and Eli and Valerie both potentially have something to share, and then we can get in discussion. Other people can ask questions, share, whatever. And are you guys, Eli, are you okay to start with, something that you had from last year, I guess, or this year, things you've learned in the past year or two, or something specific you learned?
Sure. Well, we're still learning a lot, and I think, like Valerie mentioned, or maybe she had to take off for another meeting, but we had 0 employees in 2019, and then went up to, I think, 12 or 15 our first year in 2020. So we kind of are still on the learning curve pretty steeply on that. And something that I just noticed kind of over the last few weeks as we're starting to get applicants in for the season is that we did notice that we've seen quite a few more experienced but also young and really enthusiastic applicants than we've seen over the last few seasons. So I don't know if that's a trend for other people in other areas of the state, but it's something that definitely makes us a little optimistic. Gives us some enthusiasm. See all these 20-year-olds with 2 seasons of experience looking to put down farm roots. I don't say lots of them, but a few. But something that I remember coming up when I talked to you a couple weeks ago, Hans, was I think I mentioned a strategy that we had kind of ended up using to help us, I guess, better utilize the staff we had in leadership positions. I think maybe I'm remembering that I talked to you about a situation where kind of maybe in the middle of the season we had a few people on our team that we weren't really sure we couldn't really tell if it was the right match, and it was hard for us to really tell if they were really happy on our farm. And and it was maybe, hard for us to tell if we were communicating correctly to get, to get the work we needed from them. And we're just a little bit, just not sure where that would go and how to kind of move that forward. And kind of the strategy we ended up adopting was to really try to first just kind of talk to the employees and really try to figure out, was there a part of the job that was really just not jiving with them, or not, that felt a lot more stressful and was causing them distress. And then were there parts of the job that they really wanted to do and weren't getting enough opportunity. And we kind of, with a few of our employees who are now kind of back in increased leadership positions in 2023, and in positions that we're all really excited about, where we're able to really kind of identify what parts of the role were working well for them and what parts that they really just didn't see being a strength of theirs. And we were able to just kind of be flexible with our positions, and kind of in some ways like craft a position that did work and kind of played to their strengths, and it eased a lot of tension, I think, for everyone, and sets us up to have some really solid support that we need on our team this year. And we obviously also maybe have some areas where we know that those maybe certain employees, we won't put certain responsibilities on them and need to find places to fill those responsibilities. But in terms of team happiness, it did seem that when we were able to kind of craft a position, especially for our leadership teams, for the people specifically, that they're doing a really amazing job, like better than we could have anticipated, and seemed like they have a lot of enthusiasm and happiness about it. So I don't know if that kind of is what you had in mind to have me lead off with, but that was kind of one of the takeaways of our season, and what we're trying to keep in mind going into putting together this year's team.
Thanks. That sounds like an amazing success story. And I'm wondering if, you said I'd love anyone to ask more questions, because I think there's a lot in this, and then it's also broadly applicable. But like, one thing I'm thinking of is, how did you know things weren't going that well? Like, what were the symptoms? You sort of get a vibe from people, and then like, how did you actually address, like, did you meet with them formally, or was it, like that kind of thing? Because this is where your style comes in more than anything. Like, right?
I think that there was a little bit of, and it was different for different employees, but like in kind of maybe on some employees, we had a little bit of a sense of, you just kind of, you can notice someone like dragging a little bit at morning meeting, or, just seeming a little less engaged, and a little bit, kind of when you're giving someone instructions and their eyes, glaze over with fear, it's pretty obvious that they're, nothing's really getting through, and we have to back up and, try again another way. So I think part of, was asking them, it was sitting down directly with each of them and saying, how do you think the season's going? Do you want to be here? What would make this, a farm where, what would make this a situation where you feel like you would be thriving? And like, what do you need from us to make it happen? And really to try to, I think the biggest takeaway from us was to realize where we had maybe been getting a little defensive, and coming to the situation with a little bit of emotion as well, and what our projections were onto them, assuming that, maybe some things we saw where their life was just impacting their attitude at work, having a little more understanding of that, someone seeming unhappy is not necessarily about the job, but also then kind of nudging them a little bit to recognize that, like, if you're unhappy at work, everyone's going to know, and trying to both put it out there that we are here to support them, but also that we notice if they're a little grumpy.
Yeah, that's great. Colin, you had something, a question or comment?
Yeah, I'd be curious to know how many people in the room do more of formal mid-season check-ins with crews, because we really prioritize end-of-season check-ins, because we're fortunate in that we have a lot of returning employees year after year, and that's due to a variety of different factors, some that we control and some that we don't. But those end-of-season meetings are incredibly valuable, but I sometimes wonder if we're doing them a little too late. With a big crew, it's tough to carve out enough time to do an intentional sit down with everyone in the busy season. But I'm just curious if folks are prioritizing that, and if so, if you find it to be worth it.
I could jump in here.
Yeah.
We did that this year for the first time, mid-season review. We've always done end of season feedback, and it felt just horrible to have to do it because it's like late July and the last thing in the world we had time for was feedback, um and I think it was really useful in shifting some patterns and things that were showing up at the farm for folks, and also giving people a really formal opportunity to let us know things that were going well for them, and also that we could be doing better, which was really great. Um, and then we additionally do end of year feedback, which we did. But we had a situation come up a couple weeks before the end of the season where everyone was sort of there's 5 of us, 5 owners of the farm. So we have a lot of meetings. And everyone was sort of just like fed up with one crew member in particular and having the same issues arise all the time. No one was addressing it. Um, and it was happening over and over again. And some people said, okay, at the end of the year, we give this at the end of the year feedback. We're almost there. And we instead decided to give it right then. And I'm so glad we did, because everything changed about this person and they became just like total model crew. And if we waited till the end of the year, we definitely would not have hired this person back. Now they're going to come back this year. So it felt like a big, it felt really emotional and hard to have a hard conversation with this person. And they responded really well. And it changed everything for the rest of the season.
Wow. I'm so interested in both what Colin you said and Micah, because they're like these moments where you're kind of not you're doing something that you don't really feel like doing. It's like the last whatever, it seems like is not enough time, but then somehow you pushed into that. I'm curious, this is a stuff something inside of you allowed that to happen, right? I'm thinking. I mean, I'm just curious, like, how did you both of you, Micah, Colin, like actually say like, okay, I know this is hard, but it's got to happen. And I think, what I think it could yield something good. Like, was this something that you just had a gut instinct about, or was it like you heard this is a good thing and you're going to try it, and damn it, you're going to try it and open to it? I'm curious, either of you or both, what that was like.
I mean, for me, I didn't want to do it. I'm the person who gives feedback. I'm sort of the main point person with crew. And I really didn't want to do it, but even worse, I didn't want to, at the end of the year, tell this person they didn't have a job next year. So it felt like but also, thinking about, I would feel terrible if at the end of the season, I heard the feedback, you were doing all these things that we felt were inappropriate, and I didn't have a chance to change that. And that's where we were coming from, and it felt. I wish I could feel like it's like a photo montage. The end of our season was like us just all holding hands and like running through the fields. It was that good, and it went from being so bad. And so it feels really rewarding to have it have turned out so well. And a lot of that is thanks to this crew member who received the feedback incredibly well and made changes.
Wow.
I'll chime in too. We, and I say we is primarily I'm speaking on behalf of myself and my assistant manager, but we use the end of year reviews or any check-ins really to get a lot of feedback from our crew just as much as we use it to provide feedback. We, for better or worse, and most of the time for better, we have to rely really heavily on our crew for some really critical components of our operation just because of the complexity of what we're trying to do. And so when we are able to elevate people into positions of greater responsibility, we need to and really want to jump on that. And those check-ins are really an opportunity for our crew to say, hey, I would love to get more skilled in cultivation, or I really am hungry for some experience seed cleaning. And then it's our job to create those opportunities and follow up with them either throughout the rest of the season, if it's a mid-season check-in, or into the next season. And we are firm believers that, we should be doing less and we should be managing more, because that's going to make our life a heck of a lot easier. And so those meetings are one of our key ways in gathering that information we need to do that.
Cool. I just want to say, I think I had in the, that first slide said you should probably raise your hand as needed. I don't think we need it because it's a small group. Just, feel free to sort of type in anytime. If it's a much bigger group, it can sometimes be helpful. But yeah, go ahead.
If there's time, I could jump in right now.
Oh, please. Yeah.
Stepping on everybody's toes. First of all, Micah, that's a great story. I'm really, really glad to hear that experience. And then to Colin, yeah, we started doing mid-season check-ins this 2 years ago. And to reiterate what Micah said, really hard to find time for it mid-season, but have found it really valuable. And like you said too, getting that feedback about what someone wants more of. And it turns out everybody wants to learn how to weld and everybody wants more time on the tractor, which doesn't always fit in. So for Eli, I had a question about how you balance tailoring, that position that you're talking about, tailoring to people's strengths, but then also challenging them to grow in the way that you need them to grow. Because I feel like I've often made the mistake of saying, well, this person's good at this, likes doing this, so I'm going to pick up all the stuff they don't like to do. And that's not always the best way to manage a crew either. And then Colin mentioned, or a lot of people mentioned, end of the season, like exit interview type stuff. And I like those a lot, but I don't know if I've come up with a good way to get really good feedback from our employees through that. Like I mentioned, we're a small team. It's my partner and I managing, and then we've between 3 and 5 employees. And I'm not sure if just sitting down with them and asking, for some people we get along great and we can have open conversations, but that's not always the case. So I've tried emailing out responses, that they can answer on their own time, not in person. We don't have an HR person that they can go talk to. So I'm wondering if anybody has any strategies for just getting really good end of the season, really honest end of the season feedback.
I'd be happy to respond to the question that you had. And as a response first of the getting end of season feedback from employees, I am kind of in the same page with other people saying the mid-season reviews are really hard to find time for, but we've seen them really make a big difference and just kind of re-energize people as we kind of validate that we see the work they're doing. And we've had some good luck with sending out email forms, and we incentivize feedback with bottles of hot sauce from our farm, and have had better luck from some people than others in terms of how detailed feedback they give. But the email does seem to get more response than kind of putting them on the spot. We try to send them the answers or the questions ahead of our reviews. We also put a suggestion box in our staff room, and that I think has helped kind of catch some of the things, especially it's caught some of the inter-crew struggle that we didn't notice and wouldn't have really been aware of. But in terms of how to tailor positions, I think that's a really good question and a good point. And we are still new at this and figuring it out. And so kind of what the example that I gave was kind of us realizing, with someone who was clearly someone who could be a leader on the farm and take a lot of responsibility and was not, just going to be a field worker. But what we realized through the season is that this person did not want supervisory responsibility. And that was, I think, the really big factor of saying, this is someone we can have a long-term position with increasing responsibility every year. for this person? Like, can we do that without putting them in a position where they feel obligated to be doing a lot of supervision of other employees, or is there room for this person to like take on a lot of independent projects? And for this particular situation, it was, but what we also realized is like this person had a lot of like experience in our wash pack and was really good at doing independent projects, but got really flustered with like being in a supervisory role. And so it's kind of realizing it is still worth it for us to have someone who can do independent projects, but we need to fill that like wash pack manager role and let this person's role kind of go more towards these other areas with these independent projects. So like that, in that particular person, we're still really pushing them to take a lot more responsibility, and it's kind of going into more of our like planning and greenhouse end of the business, and kind of like taking a little pressure off what they originally kind of came in saying they were interested was like maybe wash pack management, just realizing that like supervising is not going to be their strong point, and it's just going to stress them out and then stress us out. And then the one kind of point I wanted to make about like finding the time for the mid-season reviews, especially if maybe like if you're feeling a little tension, is like what we realized is that like any tension we were feeling or any like amount of discomfort like we were feeling around a particular employee over the years, we felt like what we realized is that like if we were feeling a little awkward about them, they're feeling really awkward. And so just getting it out there and having a conversation and just like checking in and saying, where are you at? Are you okay? Are we okay? It's never been poorly, it's always been well received. And it's always ended with less discomfort, at least on our end, and seemed like from their end too.
I'm going to jump in if that's okay.
Please, Joy. Yeah.
I'm wondering if any of you, I know how hectic summers get, and I know it feels like you just wake up and you work from the minute you wake up until you go to bed. But one thing that we've done, and I have our employees, we do the H2, we're in the H2A program. So we have 4 gentlemen that come from Jamaica every year. And that we did that 10 years ago, and that has completely 100% changed. I don't know that we'd still be doing it if it wasn't for that program. But I also know that that doesn't fit for every farm. But we also have one of our managers has been with us for almost 25 years. Another one's been with us for 10 or 12. And then, we have a few more that are part-time that have been with us for a number of years. And I think, sometimes I'm like astonished when I think about how long these people have been with us and how lucky we are to have them. But I also know that we're just a very close-knit group of people. The guys from Jamaica live right here on the farm with us. And so every night, I think my question to all of you is, do you do social things? Like, do you have lunch together? Do you have a beer, water, juice at the end of the day? We're doing that constantly. Tony, especially, he's with the crew all the time. Yes, he has to leave and go fix a tractor, answer the phone, run an errand, but for the most part, he's right there with the crew. So we can tell, because these people have been with us for so long, we know right away when something's wrong. So we can be like, hey, how was your day, as you're having, a beer. And they've always felt very comfortable of telling us, what's going on and where there's issues and how we can fix them. So doing those social things, every year we go on a big kayaking trip. We shut the farm stand down. We leave, we have lunch, and then we all go kayaking on a river. Like I get a rent, there's kayak companies. And so I take the stress out of it and have them run us up and down the river. But those type of things, those team building things really help to kind of keep the team strong and to do, have relationships with each other.
Joey, how did you come up with that? You and Tony, like, was it again, like kind of gut feeling or just your nature, and you've been doing it since you can remember?
Well, we're very social people, Tony and I, which I think is why having a farm and being farmers and doing this kind of work works for us, because we genuinely like being with other people all the time. So we enjoy, we don't have a huge social life outside of our farm. So they become, again, like our friends and our family. And of course, there's, but yeah, I think just, it might have been brought up by somebody years ago, like we should go and do something. We're always hanging out, after work, or like I said, during lunchtime, and seeing how much fun and joy it brought everybody, and then laughing about all the things that happened after the fact. Just, anything, I think any company would say, doing a team building type thing. And it doesn't have to be a big kayaking trip. It can just be playing bocce in the backyard at the end of a day. But those seem to help. And yeah, just being in it with them. We don't ask them to do anything we wouldn't be willing to do ourselves.
Great. Anyone else do anything like that? Some more sort of planned, whatever, small social things or team building?
Hey, well, first of all, we introduced beers to our end of week meetings, and that was a big hit. It at least made them last as long as it took somebody to drink a beer. So that was a plus. And yeah, we do some little social things, try to have dinner, a meal together once a week. And so to Joey, it sounds like you've got some really long-term experience employees, which is great. And I wish, we've got a few people that have been with us for a couple seasons now. And I really I would love it if they stuck around, because that, that's obviously a big part of our crew and training and everything else. But for new employees, if anybody has any thoughts on this, we often notice, especially when it's someone with little or no experience, what I call like the honeymoon phase, where they love it for the first 4 weeks and they're really gung-ho and really excited and, dedicated. And then maybe the monotony and, working outside in hard conditions, that kind of sets in, and you get kind of like a precipitous, decline in engagement and motivation. And that's a great time to have that mid-season check-in. But I'm not sure that I have really come up with anything, that, to help get people through that, or to then, to like reinvigorate them or remotivate them, and it's just, if anybody else has experienced that or has ideas for how to improve that situation.
Well, I think my quick thing would be, unless there's a giant project that can't wait, like weeding beets. Everybody loves weeding beets, but we try to only have the crew do, if they're doing something in the morning, they're not doing the same exact thing in the afternoon, if at all possible. Sometimes that can't be helped, but that's always been the general rule. If you're weeding beets in the morning, then you're packing something out in the pack house in the afternoon. But again, when possible.
Or welding all afternoon. Well, I'm going to just reflect back. We've talked about some strategies, forms, mid-season check-ins, end-of-season check-ins, sort of conflict pull-out meetings when you sense something's wrong, team building stuff, social stuff, retention, how to make people feel valued, switch up. We haven't talked about interviews yet, recruitment. And, I just actually want to pause for a second and observe that this is external stuff, right? That you have here's a technique, mid-season check-in. How do you actually make it happen? How do you introduce it to the group? How does it feel? How do you, are you flexible with it? So that kind of comes back to your style. Like, again, what works well with you? What are, and I'm just curious, maybe just take a second. Like, what do you write in the chat? What do you most look forward to with crew, with working with crew or managing crew? I'm just curious. Just like put something down there. Anything. Like if there's got to be something that rises to the top that's fun for you or it's like joy. I'm just curious. And then also something that you maybe either dread, you think is a difficult thing. So maybe two small things, sort of like separated by comma, in the chat box, and let's see what that is, because that I think informs sort of your style and what and of course then there's like what you think your strengths are, your challenges, but this is really, I think, how are you going to make the form work? Like, this is a great mid-season check-ins, great idea. We all know it is, but it can backfire. So if you don't do it in a way that's authentic, and right for you, or a social thing, if it's awkward and pushed and you're doing it because you think you should, but it's, it may not work. So yeah, let's see what we get. Put some things in, and then we'll chat a little bit about sort of how you do some of this stuff. Yeah, we can be quiet for a little bit just as you're writing this, and then we'll have a look. Spring scattering of every tool on the farm. Watching a well-equipped, well-trained, competent team fire on all cylinders. Awesome. Watching people's confidence grow. Watching camaraderie. Being surprised by employees really kicking ass at something I've taught them well because they feel good about it and confident as a teacher. But I always look forward to the end of the day when I know they'll be gone. This is great. Enjoy being part of a big crew for big fall harvest, seeing fruits of labor, giving feedback. Love getting to chat with work crew. Maybe, yeah, let's, I'm seeing something in common here. Energy, synergy, confidence, caring, like people coming together to crank. Like, isn't that what humans have been doing for thousands of years? That's what we excel at, and it's worth taking the time to note that. And there's a certain way you may like having that happen. Whatever you wrote there, I mean, I would just say that's what you lead with. That's your mojo in a way, like how you're going to be able to describe to the group, your crew, what you're trying to do. Like, and then, if you can somehow get that in there, leading with that, then it's easy to reference things that aren't going well. Say, we're trying to get here. Here's something that seems to be a holdup, like whatever. Yeah, does anyone want to comment on that, and especially relative to the things that are hard or that are of dread or that kind of thing?
I can make one comment, and this is not about the things that I dread, but I can touch on that too if we want to. The thing that I've noticed about myself as I have kind of moved through my agricultural career is the things that used to excite me. That is my own personal accomplishments, going out and having a really successful harvest, or whatever the case may be, something that I was more involved with on sort of an intimate level, have become less important to me, and really at this point pale in comparison to the excitement that I get when I get to sit back and reflect on a team that is doing all those things really, really well, because it's that multiplier effect where you see just everyone doing their job really well and feeling competent and capable, and seeing the general output of the farm be that much greater than I ever could have accomplished on my own. And that's been a really gratifying thing as my teams over the year have developed, both as skilled workers but also as people, which is it's really fun.
Super well said.
I'd love to echo that. I think Colin said it really well, and for us, definitely like one of the most rewarding parts about running our farm is seeing our team and individuals and the team as a whole kind of pick up a project or take ownership of a project or something and just roll with it and do so much better than we could have done ourselves or than we could have anticipated. And so I think we do try to really specify that we leave openings for people to, kind of take off in a direction. And we found that sometimes our crew wants more clarification on how much room there is for them to just, take it and run. And so when we've been able to give clarity on what expectations we have for how much they'll, kind of check in and how much they'll self-guide, that seems to make a big difference on their confidence in just kind of taking it and running with it.
Other comments or thoughts on sort of your career in this and progression of what's been important or how it's changed, agreement, disagreement over the years?
I don't mean to monopolize the conversation, but one other thing that you kind of sparked, Hans, when you said we haven't talked about interviewing or that side of things, but it's somewhat relevant to the conversation we're having now and sort of understanding yourself before you go out and try to bring other people into your operation. I used to be, a bullheaded, well, I still am, but bullheaded young punk who thought you could do everything and knew everything and all that. And so you would go out and you'd hire people based on what it was that interested you in a given season, a hard worker, someone who could pick the most kale in an hour, whatever the case may be. And that has gotten less important to me as time has gone on, and it's more about hiring for my deficiencies as a manager and saying, okay, I need to have a little humility in here and know that I'm never going to know everything and be okay with that, and instead assemble a team based on that so that as a whole crew, as a unit, we can be way more productive than we might otherwise be. And that was a hard realization because it did require eating some humble pie and feeling okay with some of the things that I will never develop as a person. But I tell you what, once I was willing to accept that, the productivity of my team and the way I went about hiring really progressed pretty rapidly.
That's a great segue. I was actually going to ask that question. Sort of, that was one of the things. Is like, okay, what are your joys? What are your and dreads? What are your deficiencies? Where do you think you are falling short and aren't going to necessarily ever be a star? But that's the humility pie. So yeah, Colin, I don't want to. I'd love anyone to talk about this because this does really get at the hiring. It gets at a lot of things that are important. It starts sort of look inward and a little reflection there. So yeah, would you want to finish or add a little bit more to the deficiencies, and anyone else add? We can bat that around a little and maybe talk about hiring, and then we'll probably be out of time for now.
I can add one example that comes to mind for myself. So I have a really excellent working relationship with my assistant manager who we kind of fell into the roles. I didn't actually hire him into the role, but what I've noticed is that having key members with different, we'll say, levels of emotional intelligence, if we want to define it as such, has been really beneficial for our operation. So I recognize about myself I'm not naturally an empathetic person. I would love to be, but that's just not how I'm wired. And so my assistant manager, John, is the exact opposite. He can relate to people really naturally, has just automatic empathy for people when they're going through a challenging situation. And I really am thankful that he has that skill set, whereas I can focus on providing the technical guidance, the instruction, the the solid things that lead to productivity on the farm, and the two of those skill sets work together really nicely. But if I were to try to sit back and have a really intense, empathetic, meaningful conversation with someone, I would struggle with that, and it wouldn't be as useful to those people, I think, as having that conversation with someone who is more well equipped for it.
That's a great example. What are some other ones?
I don't mind speaking up again. I know I've talked a lot, but I really appreciate what you said, Colin, about hiring for your weakness. And it's something on like a kind of a less personal, kind of interpersonal level. Something that I don't love doing is growing small, diverse market quantities of crops and harvesting these little lists of 100 different things. And so I had, initially steered my business just in a different direction towards more wholesale. But as we, on this property are seeing there's so much demand and so much potential for retail, being able to hire in and seeing in our managers that we have, being able to hire in people who really do like working on those small detailed crops and harvests. And that's a strength that it's not going to be something that's fun for me, but it's something that's fun for them. So being able to hire for that deficit has made the farm a lot more, productive and profitable, and has made my life better because I'm not out cutting salad greens.
That's cool. So we just covered two things. One is a deficit in sort of what you like to do, and the other is a deficit in, or I should say a deficit in how you relate to people. So there's kind of different, I mean, they're both things you may like or dislike, but one's more focused on crops, outputs, the actual running of the farm, as opposed to relating to people on the farm. Both could be essential. I want to just make sure everyone sees that this growing list of resources that I had started last year, these sort of tools and, presentations that people have done that are part of our group. I just put it in the chat there. That's a shareable, editable document. So feel free to add anything that you have or are interested in. And I will email everyone in this group right afterwards too. And, it's my hope that in this next couple of months, as you're hiring or setting up any systems or changes, feel free to shoot a question out and to that group, or we'll be watching it. We could, either connect with one person, or I can try to respond and put a call out and get some information or resources or help. But I just wanted, this idea of it takes a village really to kind of figure this all out, and it takes time and patience, and it's a continuous improvement, and step forward, step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, that kind of thing. All right, what else? A little more on hiring maybe, because that's super important. I know that, I think it was Taylor from Footprint Farm last year, and that link is in this document I just shared as well, who really has worked hard on the hiring and the way they go about that, the questions they ask people, whether it's hiring for a specific need, but also like getting at, okay, are you doing this just because you got a romantic view of, being out in the field and doing this beautiful harvest on a beautiful day, and, like having your hands in the soil and, that kind of thing, or, where are they coming from, and that sort of reality check. Yeah, I'm just curious just to hear a little bit more about what folks have learned about hiring that helps really focus employees and sort of bring up the stuff before they join that is important.
Over the years, so many hundreds and hundreds of people have come through this farm, and every year I devise a new set of questions to try to get at the why. But when it comes right down to it, we don't have a steady stream of folks that are coming on the farm to work. So normally if they show up here, they get in touch with us and we have an interview with them and they seem like they want to give it a try, we always tell them that they're on like a kind of like a they're trying us out and we're trying them out, like a trial basis type thing. That way they can get to know our crew and the crew can get to know them. And of course, because we've had people for so long, it can be a little tough, I think, to come in and to fit in and to be the new person. So we usually try to make sure we pair them up with somebody that has more emotional, what I forget his name, but don't stick them with the person that's maybe a little impatient and just driven, but can be nice and accommodating and train the person. But yeah, I haven't figured that out. How do you find the right person? I think we just let everybody try it and hope that they want to stick with us at least through the season.
How do you manage for that? I mean, do you have like a trial period and then you're still you've got the word out and you have potentially like people on waiting lists or in the wings, or is it sort of like you're rolling the dice? Because I can imagine it's 2 weeks and they're gone and all of a sudden you're scrambling again.
I feel like we're always scrambling, but again, I think that's where having the H2A program has worked out for us, because the year before we started the H2A program, we had to hire 50 people for one season because they came and they went, they came and they went, they came and they went. And obviously we were doing something wrong, but it was just a lot of people, like you said, I want to be outside. I want to be working hard. I want to be, all those romantic ideas. And then we do wholesale and retail, and there's 30 acres out there so it usually ends up being too much. But that year really taught us, like, we can't keep doing this. We don't have the time to train everybody that walks through the door and then they leave. So again, that H2A program has really worked out, and we're lucky if we get 1 to 5 people. We're lucky if we get 5 people a season that come and want to work on a farm. I mean, it's just the reality of it, which is also why we did the H2A program, because we were struggling so much. We needed a solution.
Have you seen some of that team building stuff change the tide on a local hire that you didn't think was going to make it, or I'm just curious if that some of the stuff you have done, the cultivation of this, has actually seemed to make a difference with local hires now and then.
Yeah. We have, for the most part, I'm trying to think, we had maybe 2 new people last year. I'm not sure if they're coming back this season or not. They were part-time. We have a really hard time finding anybody that will do 40 hours a week. But because it's this crew is really happy and everybody's laughing or singing or doing something, people usually stay. I don't know if that was your question, but having those long-term people bring everybody else up.
Yeah. I mean, the question is really kind of around how incredibly variable effort can be, that I've seen, whether it be students or people, or, on expeditions. I was a NOLS instructor, and just like not just 50% more, I'm talking 1,000% more. Like, people can just rise as a team, but together, the power, when they're confident, when they're like having a good time and they're, into it, it's just like, oh my God, it's like, where does this energy come from, and where does this focus come from? So that's like, there's some magic in there that I can't quite put a finger on, but I've seen it again and again, and who knows? There's no formula, I'm sure, but it is. I think I see some head nods there. Like, when things click, it can really make a huge difference. Maybe bring someone along who is dragging their feet, and that kind of thing. I think I just want to make sure, like, if there's someone who was going to say something before, just like, maybe it was Ryan. I can't remember. There's a couple people that looked like they were about to say something. And just give a pause here.
Yeah, thanks, Hans. I was just gonna jump in a couple times, but then the thought passed. But I did want to say that I think we are in a similar situation to Joey, although on a much, much smaller scale, like literally a tenth of the size of their farm. But we're the next town over, and I think that the thought of having multiple interviews and being able to decide, between the best candidate is not, it sounds like a luxury, honestly. And I haven't done very much marketing, and I'm not good on social media, and I don't really get the word out because I don't have a huge need. But to get high quality candidates here seems like a real challenge, and it's hard to. So basically, that said, two people have come to me, and I hired them basically on the spot, and then I did a little front porch forum and hired somebody else right away. But I haven't ever really had to turn anybody away. And I don't necessarily know if there's a point to saying that, except for that, I know we're limited on time, but I'd love to hear about anybody else's experiences of doing things, or the best net that they've casted to get really good people.
I might just add to that, saying that where we live, we're kind of surrounded by this tourist economy with multiple ski areas, and we find it super hard. We're about an hour from Burlington and 45 minutes from Montpelier, and there aren't many people up here who necessarily want to be working on a farm, but there might be people in Burlington, but they're not going to commute an hour, even when we interview them. So it makes it extra challenging that way. And housing is limited by the tourist economy.
Yeah.
Have you guys thought about H2A or not? I'm just curious.
Well, I mean, Hans, honestly, our house isn't even really very done yet. So the thought of having to, have another house for somebody else, we got to finish ours first. But I mean, it's down the line. I think it might be something, but we're small. I had 2 part-time employees last year.
Yeah.
Love to have somebody full-time or a couple part-timers, but just getting the word out seems like such an uphill battle for me, and maybe that's just my personality. I'm not sure, but yeah, it's challenging.
Do we have any comments about that? Like what people have done that seems successful, whether or not it'll be successful in Hyde Park, I don't know. And then we'll probably need to wrap things up here, given the time.
Can folks hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, this is Micah. I had to get off the computer. My partner needed it. We have, we're located in Burlington, so that is a real huge luxury in terms of finding people. And the tool that we have found most useful is Instagram, because the people who are able to work on a farm for what we're able to pay and things like that are tending to be younger and younger. And so we're getting a lot of people who are 22 to 24, and Instagram is like the main way that they live their lives. Not all of them, but kind of a lot. And my crew couldn't believe that I posted the job anywhere else. They were like shocked. They were like where? They're like, did you take out an ad in a newspaper? And I was like, I'm not that old.
Take a break.
But I would say 90% of people come to us through Instagram.
Anything else?
I had a little bit of luck with Indeed as well. I was kind of shocked, but I really did actually have some good luck with that.
I've heard a couple instances of borrowing workers part-time from other farms in the neighborhood. I mean, you pay them, but it's like I don't know if that could be a regular thing, but it's an interesting concept.
Like an employee cooperative or something like that, like an equipment share, but like an employee share situation.
Employee share, exactly. If you have part-time employees, maybe there's another farm nearby, and you could go in on that and end up getting a full-time, making a couple full-time positions.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, Andy's typing something. Feel free to type in more, but let's spend the last couple minutes. Basically, this is nothing nothing formal. This group has come together. We've shared some ideas, some resources, things that have moved us, and hopefully you're leaving with at least something you might want to, you're looking at, thinking about changing. You heard something, you might try it. Just if you can take a couple minutes to fill out this form here. This is part of our scrub that we actually have to do this, and sort of if we're doing these things, like get anything from this, you want to try anything, and we will maybe have someone follow up with you in the fall and just say, hey, anything different this year, or what, how did it go? So go ahead and click on that, and I think everyone sees it there. It's like now two chats up, or the third one up from the bottom, that link. So if you can click in there and just take a couple minutes, we can just be silent. People can be typing or whatever, and we'll close it out by 5:30. I messed up. I used and sent a link to sorry, there's one of the questions is missing words. It's not that important, actually. It's at this meeting I obtained new information that, and then there's check boxes there. I'm sorry about that. That was totally my bad. I had the wrong one there, and I realized the other one isn't there. So go ahead and you can check that if you want. But the key thing is, did you learn something you want to use? And if you check yes, what is that? That's important. And if you'd like any follow-up. Okay, well, you feel free to keep working on this if you're not done. We'll close this out, and any parting thoughts, especially around if you have any thoughts about either next steps or future focused discussions, things you would like more information, and maybe you wrote that in the form, but I would love to hear it as well. If there's anything on your mind, just as a closing, it'd be great if we could do more of this, or if this could happen. And this is like looking into the next few months and into this season, because in terms of getting people together, holding some form around this. Employee hiring coming up. All right, well, I think, do we have anyone typing something? All right, well, I will send a little follow-up just with those thank you resources and just everyone on the same list who was attending today. And thank you again. I really learned a lot hearing from you guys, and these mid-season check-ins and all this sort of stuff. Some of those success stories and techniques, really helpful to hear those specific examples. And look forward to hearing from any of you, any follow-up, and have a great evening, everyone. Thanks for joining. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.